Dunbar's number is the limit on the number of relationships, meaningful relationships that you can have at any one time. Um, I guess we'll come back to how that relates to the digital world uh, later on, as it were. But so I'll just focus on what that um, means in terms of both our kind of history as a species, if you like. So what happened before the digital era, um, in life in the real world, as I always refer to it. Okay, so um, this number, Dunbar's number, was predicted off the back of a equation relating social group size and brain size in primates. And if you plug human brain size into that relationship, you get a number of about 150, give or take some variation around that. And it turns out that that number is indeed very much the typical size of our extended friendship circle. So these are all the people we have relationships with that have history. We've known them for some time. We know a lot about them. We feel comfortable about interacting with them. We do, as I sometimes describe it, it's all the people you might meet in the departure lounge of Hong Kong Airport at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you wouldn't feel embarrassed about going up to them and slapping them on the back and saying, "Hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you for a long time." Because they know where you stand in their social world and you know where they stand in your social world. So that number 150 keeps coming up all over the place. So we've found it both in, if you ask people to list out all their friends and extended family that they feel they have meaningful relationships with, that they try and keep in regular contact with, let's say at least once a year. We found it in Facebook data sets. So I think the biggest sample of the lot was 61 million Facebook data sets. These are not an analysis we did, although we have looked at Facebook data, but somebody else looked at Facebook, a huge sample of Facebook data. The average number of friends on Facebook, despite the urban myths, was 149 exactly. And Dunbar's number is 150. So it doesn't predictions don't come any better than that in our world. Um, we've seen it in the structure of military organizations. We've seen it in the structure of business organizations. We've seen it in the number of people that you telephone regularly on your phone book, as it were. And again, those are huge samples. I think there were something like 20% of an entire European, very large European country was the telephone data set comes from one provider. And again, if you look at the number of different people that have phoned, and that's to say, forget the business numbers. These are meaningful relationships because our criterion is, do they phone you back? It must be at least one phone call each way to count a relationship. Then again, we get something very close to 150. If you look historically, it's the average size of villages, both in deep history. So there's a very nice data set in England, kindly carried out by the Norman conquerors that we had around 1066, who censused everything to see how much tax they could get out of us. And they literally recorded everything, and from that, every cow, sheep, field, chimney, whatever. And from that, the historians have figured out that the average size of villages in 1000 AD was in England and Wales was 150 people. There's a very nice data set that spans 6 centuries from the Italian Alps, going from about 1250 to about 1850, on the size of grazing associations in the Italian Alps in one location. And grazing association is really basically a village. Again, the average size was about 145, despite the fact the population was increasing. When it got too big, the village split, and half of them went off somewhere else. So you can see lots of examples of this number reappearing, both in terms of how we're organized, but also in terms of our personalized relationship. So it's a very robust effect. It's a very robust number.